Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome into the CanesInSight Daily Show. I am Peter Ariz. Thank you, as always, to our sponsors, Anajar and Levine, the law offices of Anajar and Levine. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. All right, everyone. D-Money is traveling still today. You know, we had the big commitment last night in Keyshawn Stansel, defensive lineman, flipped from Clemson. Huge win for Miami there 2 nights in a row now with some big-time pickups, and I don't think they're done yet. I do not think they're done yet. They have some serious momentum right now, so keep it locked on CanesInSight for all of the latest. As we do every Thursday here on CanesInSight, we bring in the great Steve Kim, K9 Kane. Steve, I'm pumped up, man. I'm about to head to the airport right after this, headed to Dallas. I know you'll be there. I'm dressing as you for Halloween this weekend. I have the full track. You can't really see, but I got the team issued sweatpants on. So I took some inspiration from you. I know normally when you hit the road, you're a heavy orange and green.
Yeah, but here's the difference, though. Now I've been to a few home games, because they've all been home games basically, right? So when I pack anything orange and green with an Adidas, an Ibis, or a U is on it with sandals, orange or green, got to coordinate. Now, here's the thing. I checked the weather report. It's going to actually feel like a fall day. Now, I hate this 11 a.m. start time. I've never actually been to a game that started this early. Earliest I've been is 12, okay, or 9 a.m. Pacific. Now, here's the thing. It's actually going to be in the high 50s to low 60s. So for everyone traveling, guys, wear your orange and green, but make sure sweater, hoodie, sweatpants, and I'm also going to bring my Adidas Miami Hyper Boost shoes. Again, I'll be coordinated, but I'm going to be a little bit more layered up this weekend.
Yeah, I had to go see Harry at Miami HTS yesterday, Steve, at the Miami Hurricane team store, because I have some cold stuff from over the years, but you need to freshen it up. And I looked at that. Man. It could be in the 40s this weekend. So
Ooh,
yeah,
Peter,
I'm sure at game time it might be a little warmer, but
let me do a little story time with you. I was there Thanksgiving weekend of 2003, and it was kind of a momentous occasion for Miami. It was our last Big East game ever. We're playing at Pitt when they had a guy by the name of Larry Fitzgerald. They had a left-handed quarterback. I think his name was
Rutherford.
Right.
Rutherford, yeah.
That weekend was literally, I think, on average, about 12 degrees. Now, I've lived in California my whole life. I'm the type of guy, once it gets below 70, it's cold. Peter, it was so frigid and a little bit windy out there. I'll never forget, we threw this huge tailgate, and the Antrell Roll family was out there as always. Kellen Winslow was actually out there senior was out there for a quick minute. It was so cold. All the beers we just left outside. You didn't need a cooler. We had this big bonfire going. We were roasting, I think, a pig. It's the most frigid and freezing I have ever been. And from that point on, I realized if I could take this, I could take anything. And we ended up giving up an early touchdown drive, then our ground game, our physicality, and Sean Taylor and Antrell Roll absolutely shut down Fitzgerald. And that game was actually for the Big East title. And unfortunately, Peter, it's the last conference title Miami ever won.
Yeah, hopefully that changes this year. But I wondered, were they asking the questions of those teams? Can they play in the cold back then? Steve, was that a thing, or was it just since it was Big East that they were kind of used to it?
You know what's interesting about that game? A lot of our players, if you watch it, came out short sleeves. They set a tone. This thing is very psychological, the way you come in. And I remember Stacey Coley's freshman year, 2013. We played that same weekend, and this was more of an afternoon game. I remember seeing footage of our linemen and some of our other defensive players came out shirtless. I think Denzel Perriman was out there. I mean, again, how you approach it.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Look, the season is on the line, and I've said this. We may not be in the playoffs, but Miami is now in elimination game mode the rest of the season. That is the harsh reality of this.
No doubt. Steve, let's let the people know who this great segment is being brought to us by.
Oh, always our good friends, the Cruz family and Canes fans. Before you head out to Hard Rock Stadium, you got to make sure your tailgate is all loaded up. Bring the full arsenal: beers, liquor, spirits, wine, everything, and get it at Jensen Sunset Corners. They have you covered with everything that you need. And guys, for home games at Hard Rock on game days, you come in with your University of Miami gear. 10% off all non-sale items. So make sure you rep the U and make sure you support Jensen Sunset Corners, located at 8701 72nd Street, a Miami tradition.
Shout out to Jensen Sunset Corners. Thank you to the Cruz family. As always, best in the business, guys. Go check them out. Steve, before we get into SMU here, as you said, this is the next one in our playoff run here. Is pretty much that's what it is. You can't lose another one. Last week, it's been the beautiful thing about having you on Thursdays is that we can kind of take a few steps back, and the emotional stuff that we watch during the game and in the maybe 24 hours thereafter. You always do a great job with your posts on Twitter and CanesInSight, kind of reflecting immediately after the weekend. But thoughts on Stanford game, just all encompassing in terms of your thoughts there, and where are you concerned, I guess we can say.
Yeah, look, I rewatched the game on Monday night. And I would say it is the tale of two halves. And I came away a little bit better, like Lance Roffers. You let the emotion die. I think live tweeting at times is the worst thing you could do. You say stuff that you regret, the heat of the moment. You got to let a game unfold. A couple of notes that I took on my old school tablet. All right, couple things. I know there's been a lot of discussion over the offense. And Shannon Dawson, he got a little agitated with the media. And I want to say this. I'm glad the media asked that question. That is part of our jobs, is to question, to cajole, to prick, and to prod. And Shannon Dawson has a right to answer that question in any way. And I know people are giving him heat for it. Look, I wish she was a little bit more explanatory, if that's even a word, right, in terms of, hey, why do we do this? But again, he wants to keep things close to the vest. Here's what I saw as a layman, and me and Coach JB did a video where he actually broke it down a little bit, and that's on his channel, Coach JB's show. You ought to check it out. Some of the other content creators have made videos about it. Here's what I see, Peter. There's nothing with this offense that cannot be fixed this season. I've seen other years where you say you can only go to the offseason and fix it either through changing the schematics, the system, tweaking it, and getting new players. I don't see it that way. Here's my general viewpoint. Number one, I think we need some more spread sets. Okay? I actually like the way we came out of the game early. 2x2s, running spread, one back, throwing the ball all over the place, getting Tony Johnson involved. And then all of a sudden, we got very tight again, and the first drive bogged down, and then the offense was stuck in mud for much of the first half. So, again, we're not asking to be full-blown Mike Leach air raid. I don't think we'll ever see a Miami team under Mario Cristobal throw the ball 45, 50 times consistently. That's not winning football. Also, as I rewatched the game, Peter, in the second half, or late into the first, all the way to the middle of the fourth, when Carson Beck is allowed to throw on early downs, it was successful. And I'm going to say this again. The most difficult way to play quarterback is to go run. Oh, good. It's 3rd and 9. Now what? We have to trust Carson Beck for better or worse. If this team really wants to go as far as it can, you cannot be afraid of your quarterback. Bottom line. The other thing, again, I'm not asking to be Art Briles Baylor. It would not hurt this team to go a little bit more pace and tempo. As a better team, you want to lengthen the game and have more plays. You do not want to shorten it. Also, we are not asking for a change of system. I believe that most reasonable minds are asking for a little bit more variation and at times play against your own tendencies. That's why you have analysts. And so, one last critique. My major issue in this game strategically happened in the end of the first half. Peter, we tied the game at 7. We have about a minute 10 to minute 15 left with 3 timeouts. Now, we are not playing Louisville, okay? They do not have a Chris Bell. They don't have an Isaac Brown. Stanford runs the ball. They get about 4 to 5 yards. You got to immediately call timeout. You got to immediately call a timeout and say, okay, we might be able to get the ball back with about 50 seconds to go here if we get a 3 and out. You could force the punt to Malachi Toney, had a really good game doing that. And you could get, with the college rules now, inside of 2 minutes, the clock still stops after a first down. So you can try to get another field goal attempt. And instead, we go into the halftime with 3 timeouts in our back pocket. Again, as the superior team that's deeper with better athletes, you want to lengthen the game. That's just all I'm saying. It's just my opinion. I'm not a coach. I'm just a crouching tiger watching the game. All right, couple good things. Peter, you know who flashed and I think has earned more snaps? Word to Herb Scroggins.
For sure.
I actually
will.
like it.
And he will. I think you're gonna see even more of. I think he played 15 snaps was the number last week, Steve, and you're gonna see more of that. He'll be in the 20s this week, I'd imagine.
He's not fully physically developed, but he's already more imposing than Lightfoot and Pickett, who both played. Also, Dante Simpson, I think we need to get him into the rotation. So I really like what Scroggins brought off the table, off the edge. Great motor. He's lengthy. He's got some good size to him. He should start becoming more or less a regular part of that defensive line rotation. And blowouts matter. We got to empty the bench, and this is why I believe blowouts actually help a team develop organic depth. So those are my general thoughts on the game. And here's hoping that the carryover we see in Dallas.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in when you were talking about the at the end of the half there, because that was one of the main things I was talking about on my post game. Steve was like, they were playing for the tie at halftime. They were happy to play for the tie and kind of reset things at halftime. And I think it goes to kind of show, which I said on the post game show, and it's going to be the next comment I bring up here is kind of along a similar line, but it just felt like in that first half they were protecting Beck in a certain sense, and maybe they didn't want to get the ball back there and have him take a chance downfield, and there's a turnover. Like, that's what it felt like at watching the game. Now, Mohammed Hussein says, Steve, in my opinion, Carson doesn't have the arm talent for Dawson to call a more diverse game plan to take those chances.
Well, hold on, Mohammed. You may be right. Does he have an absolute 10-plus arm? No, but if you actually watch that game again, we're talking about very basic, simple routes, like the over route, stuff on the RPO, quick hitters.
Yeah, the quick stuff. You don't need crazy arm talent for some of the like some of this. Get Malachi Toney in motion and using him in different ways, right? Like I think we started to see a little bit the last couple of weeks, but
if Carson Beck in the Louisville game just hits checkdowns, it's a totally different game. And I'm with you, Mohammed. Does he have that arm? Because a couple of his interceptions have flat out been underthrows. He didn't lead guys far enough. Or one of the ones against Louisville, his second interception on the go route, he's got to lead CJ Daniels more or less into the pylon, and he underthrew it way inside. I'm with you on that. But I'm not asking him to be Brett Favre or John Elway. We are asking him to hit very basic out routes, comebacks, dig routes. And one of the things that has been disappointing about Beck, even on his completions, as I like to say, he's tackled our own receivers because his ball placement has not been very good. But throwing on early downs, we're going to get some favorable looks on the back end. Here's another thing I liked. Josh Moore's got to play more. I know he took a little hiatus. He kind of disappeared. I don't know what happened to him. He gives us a physical, athletic presence. And your guy, Tony Johnson, has shown that he could be a real player. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with Loch Ness Trader, but I think he got about 20 snaps. Hopefully that's a beginning to bigger and better things. But I still recall, Peter, and I know you do too. Go back to 2023 when Tyler Van Dyke got the yips. There was a period of about a month or so, really after the Georgia Tech game. We got so scared of our own quarterback, we put handcuffs on us. And I remember we played a game at Carter Finley Stadium, North Carolina State. Defense played lights out for about 3 to 3.5 quarters, but we would not run our full offense. And finally, the dam broke at the end. If we're going to do that, we have no shot of doing anything significant in 2025.
Yeah, agreed. We're getting a lot of great comments here. Friends Post says he could use a 50-50 guy. I would say CJ Daniels is a 50-50 guy.
Yeah.
I think he's pretty good there. I think you're missing Malachi Tony. It's hard to say you're missing something because Malachi's been so good, and it's like beggars can't be choosers, but you're missing another speed, deep threat guy.
Yeah.
I believe. Now, Marion could be that, and I think the funny thing with receiver, real quick, Steve, is like, we were talking about we want more rotation, all that. I could envision a world, because Dawson in the beginning of the year said, look, we did not rotate that much last year. We are going to do it a lot more. We're going to do it a lot more. And then the first month of the season, it's like, well, it's still the same sort of thing. But let's kind of peek into the crystal ball here as we talk about how long the season is. You got these very important stretch of games here. Yeah. Last week you saw Tony Johnson get involved. Josh Moore continued to get involved. You understand Malachi is going to keep probably doing exactly what he's doing. I know Daniels has had a little bit of a, drop situation there, but he's a vet. I think mentally he'll be all right. I'm not a concern there. So you expect those two guys to stay on the path that they've been on. Keelan Marion, obviously the fan base is split on him, but I think there's definitely a role for him within this offense. You see what Tony did, Josh Moore, JoJo Trader playing the snaps. Like, you can see a world here now over the next 4 or 5 games, Steve, where that rotation becomes a real thing.
I would certainly hope so. And Josh Moore gives us something athletically. And I'm just telling you, I really love the first 4 plays. We went doubles on each side. And I'm thinking, okay, let's pass early to run late. And I'm gonna say this ad nauseum. I believe running the ball and many times and about controlling the clock and being physical. I think you should do it when you're ahead, when you've gathered points. I don't want to be in a bunch of 7-7 slogs. I would much rather be up 28-7 and tell Ruben Bain, Ruben, get about 3 sacks in the second half. You're not going to get any holding calls, but you're going to have a lot of opportunities now where you don't have to play the run. I get what Mario is trying to do, but this game becomes so much easier, and it's just simple logic when you're allowed to play from ahead.
Steve, you and I will both be in Dallas this weekend, but you know where we would be if we were in Miami. Obviously, we'd be at the game, but we would be at the great Duffy's Tavern. Right. I mean, they know our names over there, Steve. Shout out to Duffy's Tavern, right on the edge of Coral Gables, home of the Hurricanes. I'm pulling up the Instagram page here. You see it, Duffy's Tavern, Miami 2108 Southwest 57th Avenue. It's the classic, man. They've got the pinball machine in there now. I don't know that you saw the pinball machine there the other day. They got the pinball machine in there, and you see it where the elite meet to eat. That's the table that D and I normally do our shows from in there. So yeah, man, I'm excited to get back to Duffy's next week. And as you see, accepting credit cards. I know a lot of you guys know about the cash only days, but accepting credit card now. Duffy's Tavern. There's some other Duffy's chains out there. This is Duffy's Tavern there.
The Tavern. No. They got the new flat screen TVs. Yeah. All that new stuff there. Yeah, and by the way, they also take Discover card, which I like.
There you go. So, Steve, SMU, let's get into it. Rhett Lashley, man, I think as Canes fans, we've been kind of proud of him from a distance, right? Because he brought this offense into the modern era, something that you were calling for as long as anyone on the message boards. But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting battle here as got the 11 a.m. kickoff we were talking about, but it's such a clash of styles here between what Mario wants to do and what Lashley does.
Yeah, I said when Lashley came into our lives, I said we went from Blockbuster Video to Netflix in terms of offensive approach, pace and space, as Roman Kane calls it. Boy, I was so disappointed that they lost to Wake Forest. I knew that would be a kind of a trap look-ahead game, and they kind of blew that game late, gave up a last-second walk-off field goal. This is interesting. Kevin Jennings is hobbled. He's not had a great year. Corey Heatherman better be ready for the quick game. I look, they're okay outside. They're not great. And they don't really.
Romello Brinson's gonna do. I've said it all week. Romello Brinson's gonna do something against.
Yeah, he might. And look, that opening drive where it's everything scripted has given us some fits. But overall, I'm looking at this. We got to make sure that we get right in the way of the receivers and don't give them clean releases. Read right off the bat. Kevin Jennings is banged up, guys. He's not 100% downstairs. And you also look at the defensive stats. We could throw on them. They're pretty vulnerable. And this is, if there's ever going to be a game where you allow Carson Beck to kind of take control early, this would be it. I would come out throwing. And again, I'm not talking about going full-blown air raid, but this is a game you're going to find opportunities on the back end of that SMU defense.
Yeah, I did say earlier this week there is continuity. He's been there for 4 years now, so I expect him to have. I know they have not been good on the back end, but I expect them to do a lot of similar stuff as we've seen. Probably force Carson Beck to beat them there and load the box. But to me, Steve, it's not only that battle that you're talking about in terms of figuring out early on how they're going to attack us, but just Lashley. Lashley's going to have tricks up his sleeve. They don't really have anything to lose at this point. Go ahead.
I know one thing about Lashley. One thing he was very good at. He would give up a play, show you something to then bait you in. And one of his specialties was the kind of a play action on the inside read, and then a guy like Mallory leaking out, right? And so a lot of us fans would get frustrated by all these 1 yard gains, 2 yard gains, no yard gains, and he'd give us that look. De'Ara King, pop it right over the head. So, look, there's going to be some gadgets. And I think that this happens to a lot of teams when they're looking ahead to a bigger game. They don't run the full offense. Look, I'm not saying that they run a spring ball offense, but the offense or some of the stuff that we're going to see this weekend, they were probably not going to run against Wake Forest. Now, Wake Forest actually at home under Jake Dickert, they're a pesky team. They had Georgia Tech dead to rights. The fact the game was close didn't completely surprise me. And this is now going to be, I believe, a homecoming game. And so this is probably the biggest audience that they've had this year. I watched a condensed version of the Stanford game they played. That thing was empty. I was actually stunned by how little people there were. There's going to be a real lively atmosphere.
And they're not out of the mix here. They only have one ACC loss. Right. They have at BC. They have Louisville at home, which they're going to feel like they can win that game at home. And then at Cal. So if they're in their mind, this is their season the same way that Miami, this is every game is their season now. But that to me is the aspect of it, Steve, that we have to really keep into account here.
This is a game that if Mario Cristobal ever says with this particular team, it's a race to 40 points, it'd be a lot easier winning that game if you got over 40 points. Just statistically, when you score 40, you're going to win. There has to be a point where the offense has more continuity. And Miami, to me, we have not gotten off to a lot of fast starts throughout the first half, right? One of these weeks that we've got to be up, and I don't mean Bethune-Cookman, but one of these weeks there's got to be a game where it's hitting, it's clicking, you're controlling the game, and boom, at halftime, you're scoring 24 to 31 points. You know, I look at this game and I'm thinking, could this be the start of a new season? Because I actually thought, Peter, I don't know if you agree with me, there was a carryover from the Florida State fourth quarter to the beginning of the Louisville game. And then from the end of the Louisville game, how that ended, a hangover to the Stanford game. Now, the second half against Stanford was much better, but we have to be honest about it. The 2 Malachi Tony punt returns, the interception by BUZZN, people talk about the 35 points. At least 21 of them were gift wrapped. So, but again, there was still some positive feelings coming out of that we found ourselves. Also, those guys in Vegas, they're pretty smart. Peter, we're about a 12-point favorite. So once again, what has given this program problems in recent years? Being double-digit favorites in ACC games.
Yeah. Michael says, Steve, we played FSU at night, sold-out stadium. If we get shook from the crowd, hang it up. You know, it's not even the crowd. It's a 32,000 capacity stadium, right? There's going to be some good energy in there. It's an early game. But it's more so about if they come out sleepwalking and because you can't come out the same way you came out against Louisville and Stanford because against really Stanford, because you went down 7-0 there, didn't score until the end of the half. SMU is going to score more than 7 if you give them the opportunities that you gave Stanford. And I'm not saying that it's the most prolific offense in the country, but that's I have to assume that if you're going to give Rhett Lashley some opportunities.
It is. And, you know, one thing they're not doing well, though, they're not running the ball all that well. I know they have our old guy, Chris Johnson, TJ Harden, the transfer from UCLA. Look, they miss Brashard Smith. And Brashard Smith was one of the most underrated elite players last year in college football. They miss him, the element that he gave. And I don't know if people realize, but we're playing Russell Maryland's son, R.J. Maryland, who'll be one of the better tight ends that Miami will face in 2025. They do still have some weapons, but again, Kevin Jennings is a little bit hobbled. If there's ever a game we're going to rack up 6, 7, 8 sacks, this might be the one if you allow yourself to play from ahead.
Yeah, very curious as to if Mesidor plays or not, because that's I really don't know. Last week, I was hearing most likely out, and we were saying it all week, but I don't know how it looks for him this week. You need him. You need him moving forward here. Thank you, Muhammad, for the super chat here. He says the run would benefit from vertical passing. He wants to know if we agree with that. I mean, I think that goes without saying. It's just how do you get there? You know, because there's been mixed results there. There's been some missed chances. You know, I think if there's a play that always sticks in my mind, and it could change a lot of narratives about certain things. But like Keelan Marion getting tackled against Notre Dame, for example, like is that vertical passing game? You've had some success, obviously, down the field with Malachi Tony. There's been some vertical passing success. You know, Josh Moore is that not a vertical throw? But you need it to be more efficient. I think that is what we would have to say there.
Now that I think about it, Florida State was a really good first half. That was a good half, and we need to see more of that. But again, that was a game we allowed Carson Beck. We hit a deep shot, the post to C.J. Daniels, hit the deep shot off the flea flicker to Malachi Tony. We took another deep shot early in the game to Malachi Tony, I believe, on the first drive. So
they're trying. They've shown that they want to, but now the Louisville game. I don't want to say you can't throw a game out, but that's like if you remove that from the equation, I think we're thinking of this a little bit differently.
Peter, let's look at this. You could have let's say you throw the ball 25 to 30 times, and people say, well, look, we were balanced. We throw the ball 25 to 30 times, and we ran the ball 30 times. And I say, you're right. Mathematically, that is 50-50 approximately. That's not really the definition of balance, by the way. I can get into that later. But I say, okay, we'll break down the plays. When did we throw the ball? What was the percentage of throws on 1st and 10? What was the percentage of throws on 3rd and long? See, I mean, again, there's a context to this. And the great thing that I loved about the Steve Walsh, Gary Stevens offense of the late 80s, Peter, before you were born, we used the early pass game as an extension of the run game.
Mhm.
And I thought Carson was really good in the beginning of the year, getting the ball out to Sharmar Brown out into the flat and him getting 6 to 8 yards. And I'm thinking, great, now it's 2nd and 3. Now we're in complete control. So again, we are not asking for Carson Beck to do anything he cannot do. But if you talk to anyone that has coached offensive football or played the position, throwing on 3rd and long when teams are dropping 7 to 8 is the toughest way to play that position.
Steve, and I mean, I think this actually is a big part of getting behind the sticks also, is these penalties. As Josh asked, how do you tighten them up? You know, I've been pretty, unfortunately, I've kind of accepted on the show the last couple of weeks that this is what they are. Like, I really have a tough time believing that you go from a team that has as many issues as this with the pre-snap stuff and just like eliminating it overnight.
Peter, I see a lot of teams now doing they shift really late. A lot of teams are doing that. We're the only team that gets that many pre-snap penalties offensively with the procedures, the false starts. It's maddening. I think we only had 1 or 2 last week, which I consider progress. But when it comes to the offensive line, here's something that did concern me, and maybe I hope it's an anomaly. Brockermeyer struggled against that big guy, 42, that zero tech.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, Peter, do you think Ryan Rodriguez finds his way back at center moving forward?
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't heard that they're going to make a switch in the middle of the season. I know a lot of people have wanted that. The physical presence that Brockermeyer, brings hasn't been great the last couple of weeks, but the first month of the season, he graded out as like Miami's best offensive lineman. So I have a hard time believing based off a couple tough weeks, they're going to make that switch. Next year, I think that Ryan Rodriguez probably is the center. But look, I can't keep anything out of the equation if it continues for a couple more weeks here. At the same time, center is such a position of communication and continuity that is it the best decision to throw Rodriguez in there with 3 games left? I don't know.
And also keep this in mind. Someone pointed, Steve, there's not a lot of true nose tackles anymore. You know this. You probably had, when you're scouting.
Yeah.
There wasn't like 50 nose guards.
Well, it's not even that they're not there, Steve. It's that like the schemes aren't using those guys as much. They want the quicker, which is what Miami wants. They don't. Yeah, they want the 3 techs. They want the athletes who can get upfield. Like, so I think it's more about that than, and they're just not valued in the same way. But every team is going to have a guy, I'm sure, that they can deploy in that role.
This is still a pretty good offense. Is it going to be last year's offense? No. But I'm going to say this again. There's nothing here that cannot be fixed with small alterations. I understand why Coach Dawson was agitated. Nobody wants to come into their job and be questioned over why you did this, and that, especially by people who don't know as much as you. I get it. You're a football coach. We're not. But you can't look at that offense and wonder, why do we run the ball inside? Now, there's an argument saying that, look, if we had running backs with the vision of Clinton Portis or Frank Gore, a lot of these plays would look better, because vision is the one thing that's very difficult to actually gauge. Like, how much does a running back help an offensive line, right? Now, Mark Fletcher's a very good workhorse back, but I would say he's like a horse that can go really straight with the blinders on, and he's very physical and tough, right? Jordan Lyle, I wonder if this is the best style for him, the type of run game that we run. Now, Marty Brown, I've liked. I actually think he's one of our better, more underrated players, and he's lost snaps the last 3-4 weeks. I'm not a big fan of that, to be honest with you. But when you have any type of offense, the ability to hit explosive plays, it just completely changes the dynamic of your offense and the numbers you put up. And Peter, again, these are the numbers, and the numbers deserve to have some context to them. But when it comes to explosive plays, we're not that good statistically.
Yeah, and I think the variety in the attack would aid that, but at the same time, Steve, like people might get on me here, but you're missing a guy there still. You're still missing a guy, and I know that people are going to say, well, let's get certain guys in the mix who can be that. I'm not sure that guy's on the roster right now, Steve. That's the Eric Singleton that they were going after, for example. But
I have a question.
Again, beggars can't be choosers. Go ahead, Steve.
Is Eric? I know Eric must have got a really good NIL package, and that matters. Money matters, right? Do you think it was worth it for him to go to Auburn to be basically a seventh blocker?
Well, again, I don't think that was a money thing with him. I don't think Miami was losing out because of money. That was Miami still didn't have a quarterback. There was no guarantee of Carson Beck at that point.
But wait a minute, Peter. Were they bringing back Cam Newton?
I get it, but Jackson Arnold. Listen, our boy, who's not on the show, so I don't really want to name drop him so he can't defend himself. But someone who's very close, not very close. He is the man of CanesInSight. Was a big fan of Jackson Arnold, so I think he could have been convinced. I think it was like, I'm gonna mess this phrase up badly. I'm gonna go George Bush mode, but like but like whatever's in the hand is better than what you don't have. Like I think it was one of those situations with Singleton. He kind of said, "Well, this kid looks like he's got some ability. I don't know what they have at Miami." Remember, he was at those bowl practices, Steve. He saw what Miami had.
I will admit, when I first saw Jackson Arnold, and I remember his freshman year, he played the bowl game against Arizona. And I think that ended up being Jed Fish's last game as the Wildcat coach. Turned the ball over, but I said, wow, Jackson Arnold looks pretty good. I thought he flashed. I thought you're like, okay, that's why he's a 5-star. If you go back to opening weekend, I remember on that Friday night when we played Notre Dame that weekend, I knew immediately, like, Jackson Arnold's just basically a running back. Because against Baylor, that's all they did. I was like, oh, okay.
Still almost beat Georgia.
You know, right. And it's interesting because there are about 120 teams that would take that 1-2 punch of Singleton and Cam Coleman right now as their wide receivers. And they are so underutilized.
Yeah, I think Cam Coleman will be an interesting one this portal cycle. Listen, we can say it. We aren't coaches. We aren't affiliated with it. We are the Tamper podcast. Well, Peter, I'm just saying.
Peter, let me ask you this: as someone that has recruited kids, scouted kids, talked to kids, and obviously a different level of football, college to professional, but I do wonder though, do kids still want to produce, or is it just about the money? Do they actually still want to have fun playing ball and actually putting out a good tape? Does that matter to them, you think?
Listen, the guys who love the game are few and far between. Guys want to get to the next level, right? And they understand that you need to have a level of production and a situation that is going to allow you to
flourish.
Showcase what you have. And that can be misconstrued. I'm not saying if you're a wide receiver that you're going to go and be the number one guy. Like, it's not about the opportunities in terms of you're getting the ball every play, but that the system benefits you, that the players are, it's a good atmosphere. You have a quality coach. I think that stuff matters because what I've said, Steve, as we move into this more structured era, I think moving forward here, somewhat more structured with NIL, but still going to be an element of craziness. Everyone's going to have money to spend.
Yeah.
There's going to be still varying levels of it, of course, but there's going to become a certain point here, Steve, where we're back to square one in recruiting. And it's like, what really matters is you want to go to a place. I'm not saying that you have to be contending for a national championship, but you got to be double-digit wins a year, averaging, right? If we're talking about the kids that Miami wants to bring in, and you have to send guys to the next level consistently, which they're on pace to do that, but it was not in a good place when Mario took over.
Peter, it's interesting because if Eric Singleton's looking at it, he's saying, well, wait a minute. Jackson Arnold is just poor man's Haynes King right now. And by the way, Haynes King every game is putting up about 250 to 300 yards passing, by the way. On a team, there's a very good chance they might be undefeated going into Georgia. That looks like a playoff team. I'm a big fan of what they do. I really respect them. But it reminds me because, like, when Eric Singleton's a receiver, so you want to put out a good highlight tape. So it reminds me, Michael Irvin once said, yeah, blocking's great. You got to be a team player. I get it. But it goes, let me tell you something, fellas. Every time I went in to renegotiate or negotiate my contract with Jerry Jones, I never said, hey, Jerry, see these great blocks I'm throwing? It matters, guys.
Well, Bagging Up makes a good point, and this is kind of what I was getting at. Like, he says scheme matters if you're an elite wide receiver. You want targets. You don't want to block 60% of the reps. And listen, you get targets by having good options within the system there that fit your skill set. And I think guys see that. So let me pull this comment up here from Fire Marine Candy. He says, hey fellas, a firefighter here in Orlando had a call last night, and guess who I met during the call? Darion Coleman. Kid is humble, seems like a great kid. Talked to the dad for a while. Great guy. Yeah, man. Ton of arm talent on Darion Coleman. That arm talent is special. Yeah.
I want to make one more point about this year's offense. If we had a more athletic quarterback that you had to respect at the mesh point, that put defenders in conflict and would just pull the ball and could scamper for 20, 30 yards, that would aid the offense incredibly well. We don't have that, and that is a factor. So we have to work. But Darion Coleman, I know he's a little short. I heard he's grown a little bit. He's the type of guy who can extend plays, and at that mesh point, he would have to be respected.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it's funny because that was one of the things that Coach Dawson was getting at the media about this week, saying, oh, you want me to run speed option with Carson?
You mean, wouldn't they call it a slow option?
Yeah. So that.
Hey, Peter, I know you got to go. But one last thing here. Again, Cane fans, before you head out to Hard Rock Stadium, we still have a couple of home games at the Asylum. Make sure you head down to Jensen Sunset Corners. Get all your wine, spirits, beers, everything you need. And again, on game days, you wear your University of Miami gear. You get 10% off all sale items at Jensen Sunset Corners, located 8701 72nd Street, the Miami Tradition. One last thing, and hope you have a good flight. I'll see you out there, Petey. Petey, you know the one team that's really impressed me so far, and they're surging? I like A&M, Texas A&M.
Yeah.
What a good team, man.
Yeah, Marcel Reed is talk about a guy who has the ability to move the chains with his feet and is becoming more confident as a passer. They've surrounded him with some big-time weapons. Probably, you could argue, best offensive line in the country. Obviously, we think highly of Miami's, but I think between what they're doing at the college level, because that's how I look at it. It's like you could be a really good unit in college, but like, are those also NFL body types that can maul you?
Yes.
And they have that as well. So
right, and they got two receivers that are going to play at the next level. Mario Craver, Casey Concepcion. Now, those are two guys that made the right decision in terms of, hey, I'm going to get paid, and I'm also going to be productive. Also, I know we love Ruben Bain, and he'll always be number one to me. But Cassius Howell is an absolute demon off the edge. That was a mismatch against that freshman tackle of LSU. And I think A&M this year, I don't want to hear any more 8-4 jokes. I think this team's headed to the playoff. I think they can make a run. Really impressed by that.
Elko's awesome. I think they've blended like the stigma of we're just going to spend money and have all the best talent but they've blended that because they're going to spend money.
Yes.
We've got a sensible, hard-nosed, defensive-minded coach who, again, has surrounded the not too dissimilar, I think, from what Mario wants to do on the other side of the ball, really. But Elko, schematically, defensively, what he does is awesome.
Peter, do you think that, and I know you got to get at it, one last thing, do you think in terms of roster makeup, do you think that most teams want to be 75 to 80% high school recruits, and the rest will be portal additions? Does that ratio sound about right?
I think it's going to depend on the caliber of program you are, right? Because you see, like, Ohio State took, I think, 10 kids, maybe 8 to 10 kids this year, but they were all super elite players. I think Miami, you understand that they've been very aggressive in the portal here, but Purdue, who probably will lose half their like, I don't know. I'm just throwing out a middle of the pack.
Well, they lost their best 3 players from last year: Thieneman, their tight end, and there's another guy, the defensive lineman.
Will kid, yeah.
Help.
So yes, I think it depends. Like, some teams have no choice but to be that. But Miami is going to continue to be very aggressive in the portal. I think people are going to be having a lot of fun during this portal run, watching Miami make some moves here. So,
well, according to you and Danny, I think we're going to have a pretty good recruiting season. There seems to be some exciting buzz coming out of Coral Gables there.
Yep. A couple big commits this week. Blake Stewart, crystal ball this morning from Wiltfong, and that's Vanderbilt has. Yeah, Vanderbilt has come in strong here at the end, but he visited Miami about 3 weeks ago. I think he was here for the Louisville game. So if he can visit for that and still end up a Hurricane, then he really must love the orange and green, right? So, I got to get out of here, Steve. Thank you.
Safe travels. I'll see you this weekend.
Yes, we will catch up. All right, guys. Go Canes. Hit that like and subscribe and keep it locked. I'm traveling. D gets back today, but the shows will continue. So appreciate everyone for tuning in today.